And now Sibylla Chipaziwa looks into the Green Light NY initiative in tonight's roundtable.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's roundtable. I'm Sibylla Chipaziwa, your host. With 1/4 of its population being Hispanic, the village of Mamaroneck followed Ossining and Portchester last year in supporting the Green Light NY initiative. Green Light aims to give immigrants access to a driver's license regardless of one's immigration status. This will give immigrants access to better jobs, increased road and public safety, and access to insurance, among other things. Tonight, I am joined by 2 members from the Community Resource Center in Mamaroneck, Jirandy Martinez, the Executive Director, and Kevin Duarte, the organizer of the CRC Workers Center. We are also joined by Ossining Mayor, Victoria Gearity. Please join in the conversation. The information should be on your screen now. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So, can you give us a little history about the Green Light initiative?
Sure. So like you said, the Green Light Initiative, the Green Light New York initiative is a statewide campaign that is providing access to people to get driver's licenses regardless of immigration status. And obviously that's really important for our communities. So it's a lot of different advocates and a lot of different organizations are involved and elected officials who are trying to get it passed across New York State. So Community Resource Center and here in Mamaroneck, we got really involved with the initiative last year because we realized that it was an incredibly important point for our folks to be able to apply for driver's licenses because they're driving anyway. And, you know, we want, given the political administration, we want to limit the kind of stop and detention if you are driving without a driver's license. We want to promote public safety. We want to make sure that everybody has insurance and has a registered car and is just safe. So we got really involved. We had community members sign petitions. We had about 300 petitions. And then we went to the Village Board of Trustees meeting in 2017 in January, presented the petitions and presented on what Green Light New York really meant, the campaign. And luckily it was, a resolution was passed in support of the driver's licenses campaign. Now, you know, as we were kind of just chatting before, this is a support resolution. It does not mean that now in Mamaroneck you can drive without a license and you're going to be okay. It's really a statewide initiative. And the point of why we keep talking about this is because we want the momentum to continue and we want all of Westchester to support Green Light campaign and then the rest. And of course, it's statewide. It's happening all over that people are coming out and really understanding what it means and why we need it to get passed.
So, Victoria, can you tell us about what happened in Ossining and I guess why also Ossining decided to hop on the bandwagon, if you will?
Sure. Well, it came to us from community members. We have more than half of our population is Latino, and obviously some of our residents are documented and some are undocumented, and most families, or many families, have mixed documentation status within them. So it's a concern for a large number of people in our community. And so it was brought to our attention as something that we could do to try and be helpful and supportive of people in our community. It's something tangible because immigration policies, and we passed ours in 2016, and obviously there is a change in administration coming in Washington, and that was very jarring for our community. And we're so removed from the decision making about immigration policy on a federal level that we feel really. Our hands are tied. There's so little we can do in a really direct way to help our community members who are experiencing so much fear and really legitimate fear about just what's going to happen to them and their family members, what could happen. And so if there's one tangible hands-on thing that we can do as a local community, that's advocate for people to be able to get their children to school, get themselves to work, just be able to have the economic freedom and flexibility that comes with an upwardly mobile, stable family life. And so we may not have a direct line to what's happening in Washington, D.C., but we all know our state representatives. And we all know our assembly people and our senators, and it's really important that different levels of government work together as much as we can. We each have our own responsibilities and duties, but where one ends, the next begins. And so we need to be communicating with each other. And the reality is, it's any topic related to immigration, any subject, any potential initiative related to immigration is going to elicit a response. And right now, it's really a lightning rod. And anything that we can do in Westchester communities where we have a good relationship with our representatives and we have a large immigrant population that we are very connected with and are understanding the needs of more than perhaps some upstate representatives, anything that we can do to make it easier for our representatives to say to their colleagues, look, this really matters. This matters in my community, probably doesn't matter that much in your community. Come along with me because this is going to make a difference to the economic stability of families that I represent.
Okay. Kevin, what role does the Workers Center have to do with this initiative?
So we mentioned a little bit the right to work, the right to economic mobility, and upward mobility as well for a lot of families. And at the Workers Center, part of my role is to actually help people look for work and become job ready. So it's a little bit of workforce development. And part of my challenge there is that a lot of people physically cannot get to those jobs. And other people do, but they take the risk every single day of driving without the license. And so when I look at it from the perspective of the Workers Center, even if you want to ignore the humanity or the human element for 5 minutes, when you look at it from just a labor and economic perspective, it makes complete sense because you will pass more licenses, which is fees to the DMV. You will get more people insured, which is money to the insurance companies. You will ensure that everyone is insured, that basically give no excuse for not having insurance, which is better for every driver on the road. And you also, more importantly, allow freedom in a country that is so proud of the freedoms that we enjoy that other countries may not enjoy. This is a fundamental freedom, like to drive. That's something that most Americans don't even think twice about. It's something that a lot of us do take for granted. And for some families, including my own, that's something that affects you every single day. And for me personally, it was very scary driving without a license. I used to. I am a DACA beneficiary, so I don't need to anymore. I do get a license in New York State. But once upon a time, I didn't. I just drove. And I would do it to pick up my mother from work because, I wasn't going to let her take the bus on a rainy, snowy day. Duh. I don't think anyone would in their right mind. And so when you look at it from the economic perspective, it makes sense because, I'm going to go out, pick up my mom. I'm going to need insurance. I'm going to need to burn some fuel. And when you look at it from the human perspective, it just, I don't know, I find it makes overwhelming sense to just pass this resolution and to be in support of this.
I think also just living in a place like Westchester, it really does help to have a vehicle. It's not like, in the city where they run pretty late into the night or really early into the morning, public transport. Okay, we will be right back to continue the discussion after this message.
Do you know how to request our services? Just go to lmctv.org. Under the service banner, click Forms. In our Forms section, you can apply to be a volunteer, learn about membership, learn about corporate underwriting, request a bulletin board, coverage, DVD dubs, equipment, and PSAs.
It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
And we are back at the Greenlight NY Initiative Roundtable. Again, you can participate in the conversation by calling in or tweeting us or even sending us a quick email. We're going to jump right back into the discussion. Jirandy and Victoria, I guess, you can take turns answering this. You mentioned, having community support to drive, to, I guess, bring up attention from local governments to, put this forward in the communities. I mean, can you take us back to that night when, even the proclamation from former Norman Rosenblum was read out? And I guess just the community feeling. I feel like we talk a lot about community and how it drives or attempts to drive change, if you will. Yes, so I guess, was it some sort of validation that, people were heard? And obviously it is, like, Kevin was saying, it's kind of important and it is a necessity.
Yeah.
And to not be insured, to not have a license on top of that, it's kind of risky, so.
No, it's true. It actually, last year, it was the first kind of initiative or campaign that our community members really led by themselves because they felt so passionately about it. I mean, we had some leaders in the community just go out and get those 300 petitions. We did some support, but it was really grassroots and community led. So I think it was really gratifying for us to say, hey, like we got all these petitions and our voices were heard and the resolution was passed. And they were hungry for more. Like, what else can we do to get this passed everywhere else? I think what was challenging for us is that, it is 42 different or other just jurisdictions, so you have to contact all these other mayors and communities and chief of police to support it. And then the initiative kind of lost a little bit of momentum, but now we're happy that it's kind of picking up a little bit more and that we want to increase support and resolution for the people who are doing it up in Syracuse and Rochester and Buffalo. And I mean, honestly, like we think transportation is difficult here, imagine upstate. And let's get on board. Our neighbors in Vermont and Connecticut are doing it. Why don't we have it? It doesn't make any sense. Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned that because for a lot of the people who are concerned about it or raise questions about it that I hear from in Ossining, they don't realize that we really wouldn't be blazing any trails here. There are already a dozen states that have, regardless of documentation status, all drivers have access to be able to get licensed. And it's Kevin, you spoke about it a little bit before, but for many people in law enforcement who are thinking about this, whose communities are really rising up and saying this is something that matters to us, including in Ossining, we've been talking about it. Really, we passed our resolution a month after the election because there was so much fear that immediately rose up in our community. We need to say something because passing that resolution is a message to Albany to do something, but it's also a message to our community that we share their concern. But law enforcement, they want everybody who's driving a vehicle to know all the rules of the road, not just to be insured, but to have the same preparation to be able to when they go out onto the roads. And it takes a lot. If you have a traffic stop and somebody doesn't have a license, it actually just takes a lot more time to process it. So just from a functionality perspective, and if you mentioned if you take the humanity out of it for a moment, if that's not even your concern, from the perspective of how our local government functions for the benefit and our law enforcement functions for the benefit of the whole community, if there is a large portion of our community that is scared to seek help, if a crime has been committed against them or something that they've witnessed, if they don't feel safe to be able to help with an investigation, that makes the whole community much less safe. So every time we have an opportunity on a local level to reinforce to our community, we are not the immigration authority. We are here to protect the people of the village of Ossining, and I'm sure that other municipalities have tried to express similar sentiments. It's a very hard message to get through on a local level because on a federal level, that it's obviously the most frightening things that we see are the videos of families who are being separated down at the border and also right here in our communities. And it's tough to be able to break through and have a differing message that says, you know what, law enforcement on a local level is not the same thing as federal immigration authorities. We really do need you to come to us for help. Our interest is not in your documentation status. Our interest is making sure that you're as safe in our community as you can be. And that's for your safety and for your neighbors and for the whole community.
Jirandy and Kevin, she spoke about law enforcement in Ossining. What are your thoughts, especially since the proclamation on, authorities here in Mamaroneck regarding immigrants who may be undocumented?
I don't want to speak too much, but I do understand that the police chief of Mamaroneck is on board with green light. I know that he's kind of okay with the idea for the same reasons, right? It makes everyone safer. And we know for a fact that in states that have passed a similar measure of green light or license for all type of initiative, like in Connecticut, for example, we have seen like on the literal streets that people feel more encouraged and more willing to call 911 or even to participate or cooperate in an investigation. Because a lot of people, the police will come to your door and like the mayor just told us, like a lot of people don't really differentiate between like what is the federal, like someone like me can differentiate, okay, there's ICE, there's ATF, there's the local police, there's Westchester County, there's state, like we can talk about these things. A lot of people, it's
authority and uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's very important that police forces are on board. And I think it's a very good moment. It's a very powerful solidarity from police because it tells people, we're not here to arrest you, kind of like the federal government is enticing us to do it. We're actually here to protect the whole community and to represent the whole community. And in Ossining, that speaks largely to an Ecuadorian community. In Mamaroneck, we have a lot of people from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Portchester, again, a lot of Ecuadorians. So, there's a lot of Latino communities who feel, quite frankly, attacked and are attacked by the federal government. And I think that the solidarity from the police is very important.
Right. We will take one more break and we'll be right back.
Did you know that if you missed the last government meeting, you can watch it on our website? Just go to lmctv.org, click on videos, then click on municipal meetings, scroll down to find the meeting you want, or use the search function in the upper right corner and type in the name or date of the meeting. Then watch. You can see the full agenda and jump to a specific agenda item.
It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
We are back discussing the Greenlight NY initiative. We have a question. Do any of you have an idea of what Governor Andrew Cuomo's position is on this initiative, and would you like to share your thoughts?
I'm going to take that.
Go ahead, Jirandy.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if you could take it because you may know. So Kevin and Mayor Gearity have actually been on conversations a lot more in terms of the campaign and where it is now.
Sure.
So
well, I have not heard him say that he is supportive of it. However, about a month ago, Kathy Hochul participated in a debate, and she stated that both she and Governor Cuomo are supportive of the legislation. And that is critically important. That was how it got derailed under Governor Spitzer a few years back. And this election, November 6th, will be really, really instrumental in determining this legislation. In fact, in some races where there's some contentious races, this is a topic that's being brought up. I understand they said it's the number 2 topic that gets brought up to be a divisive topic. It's a wedge issue in some races. I mean, we're not seeing that in our district, but in some districts they might be. And so we hope that Governor Cuomo would actually follow through with that if it's brought to him. But really it has to get through. The Assembly has been supportive of it. It's really what's going to happen in those Senate races. It's so close to having Democratic leadership, and we'll find out after November 6th if it's reintroduced in the new year, the likelihood of it being passed.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the atmosphere, when President Donald Trump became president-elect and, these things were moving forward or, becoming a hot topic and people being aware in the communities. I think you mentioned that there was a bit of a lull after the fact in, pushing the initiative forward. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, and why has it picked up again, you think? And what are, what is Ossining doing? Does it have a similar body like the Community Resource Center? And I know, Kevin, you mentioned what you do with the Workers Center, but what is CRC doing as a whole?
Sure. So, I mean, we got the resolution passed, and it was really, because it was such a scary time, we were really happy to get the resolution passed. And then the lull was because it was really political. The Assembly passed it, then it didn't go anywhere, and that's why we were just like, what do we do? But now it's back in, and it's gotten further this time around. There's a new there's a new senator and co-sponsors who now have it. So we really want to continue to push it, and that's why this election is so critically important. And I think just, the people are still scared. That fear hasn't gone away, and it's getting worse because we're seeing even though in this community we support the green light resolution, you have to go from one community to another just to get to work or to school. You know, you pass through all these communities, so people are still getting stopped, and then they don't have driver's licenses, and then that leads to an arrest, and that could possibly lead to deportation. So what we want to do is stop the pipeline to deportation. This is really affecting, and it's affecting us at all levels, but driver's licenses is one of them. So for sure, that's why we have to pick it up again, and it's so critically important. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it, to get information passed, and I mean, we're not going to stop, and also why we hired Kevin to organize.
Yeah, I also think that, again, I've also never heard the governor himself actually say that he will, but I'm pretty sure that Lieutenant Governor Hochul has actually said that what they want to do is sign it. They don't want to, because it's such a wedge issue kind of right now, they want to sign it by, you know, legislation, not to pass it through executive order. So kind of, you know, this is kind of our trying to pick up the steams to get this to the governor's desk so that he can sign it.
Yes.
We hope that when they go back into session in January, that this is going to be one of the pieces of legislation that moves through the Assembly and the Senate to get to the governor.
Right.
But right now, it is important that people vote, and New York State has a big lead time. So if you are not registered to vote, you only have until October 12th.
Yes.
Correct.
So if you're a first-time voter or you need to update your voter registration because you recently moved, please go to the Westchester Board of Election, get yourself up to date. Or you can apply for an absentee ballot if you're going to be out of town on November 6th.
Yes.
That is Friday, October 12th, the deadline to register to vote. And sorry, you were going to say?
Well, I was also going to say, call and email your elected officials. Let them know that they should be passing a resolution in support of Green Light New York. And, you know, as much as you can, tell your children, everybody should be involved, because it's a public safety issue. It's not just an immigration issue and we want to protect our families. It's a public safety issue. So if that's what you're passionate about, keep us all safe.
What
And-
else? Oh, sorry.
And one thing I do want to hammer in is, I think we've said it already quite eloquently, but I'll reiterate it again, is to get out and actually vote, because remember that Green Light New York is intended for people who, by default, do not have the right to vote. I, again, am undocumented. I have DACA, and I cannot vote. So in theory, if DACA goes away, because it's kind of up in the air, it's been up in the air for the past, I don't know how many months, right? If DACA goes away, I lose my license. I don't think that I've done anything terribly stupid or horrible to have deserved to lose it.
Right.
And I consider that a lot of people also deserve to be able to drive in peace. So it is important to get out and vote, you know, in favor of people who can't do it themselves, who don't have that right.
Where can people get more information on the initiative?
Why don't they contact you, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Contact Kevin at the Community Resource Center. Your email is?
KDUARTE@crcny.org.
And then phone number.
Oh, yeah, phone number as well.
And the phone number is 914-630-7022. That is a direct line to the Worker Center where I work.
And we are also planning a community education and advocacy meeting to be held shortly after Thanksgiving. So we'll know what the landscape of the legislature is going to look like next year, and it'll be an opportunity for us to be able to share this kind of information and with an understanding of the supporters and advocates and their priorities from all levels of government across the county.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll share the details with you as soon as we have those.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We'd be more than happy to spread the word. Thank you for watching at home. Thank you, Jirandy, Kevin, and Victoria, for, I guess, sharing your thoughts on a really important initiative. And exactly, Westchester County is home to a lot of immigrants. Some are undocumented, and it goes back to, the very first immigrants that came, to Ellis Island. We just want, a better life and, a fair chance. And it's kind of unfortunate, especially with the political climate now, that, the other is being seen as, the enemy and so on. So, again, thank you, and definitely we'll be following this. Thank you at home again for watching. Stay tuned for more of The Local Life.